Thank you, Patricia. It's a great honor to be moderator of this CAIO panel with a distinguished panelist of CAIOs, Florin, Nick, and Andrea. I will let them introduce themselves in just a moment. We have a lot of good topics that is maybe bigger topic and open-ended. So what I would ask panelists is to focus on a few points and then maybe give some real-world examples and try to keep your answer within 2 minutes. Otherwise, we'll never finish. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Nick, Florin, and Andrea to contribute to our recent book. It's called the Handbook for Chief AI Officer. This is a textbook for the WDTA's educational program, which is also part of the UN Bridge program called International Chief AI Officer. So welcome everyone also to contribute and to join this program. With that, I will let every panelist to introduce themselves. Florin, maybe start with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this amazing session and to share perhaps a couple of my experience having led the transformation for based on AI for an organization which is 65,000 people in 30 countries and 100 cities. Thank you for having me. I'm calling from Seattle today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm moderating from Fairfax, Virginia, in USA. So it's all late night here. Next, Nick, can you introduce yourself?
Certainly. Thank you, Ken, for having me on this panel. Esteemed colleagues and guests who are watching, thank you for your time. My name is Nick James. I'm the CEO and CAIO of WhiteGloveAI. We're a Texas-based managed AI service provider. We perform consulting, systems integration, and managed services. Our mission is to help our clients securely and responsibly adopt artificial intelligence. Now, what's relevant to this conversation is our fractional Chief AI Officer service offering, or shortly titled VCAIO, which allows us to help our clients adopt AI by giving them a single-threaded leader who serves in a fractional manner, combined with our AI adoption and management framework, which is open sourced at aiamf.ai, if you'd like to look at it. And we help them organize all the right stakeholders in their adoption journey and help them implement securely. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, next, Andrea, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, hi everyone. My name is Andrea Isoni. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me in this prestigious event. I am the Chief AI Officer of a company called AI Technologies, which is based in London. I am based in London, UK. All we do is basically AI project for other companies. I am also a committee member for International Standard Organization. And every year we also published what is called the State of AI. We have the third, fourth edition, if I remember correctly, next year. And every year we give an overlook of what are the trends in the market. And based on that, we give an overlook what is going to be in the next 1-2 years, the adoption of AI, both in society and different industries. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. A little bit about myself. I'm co-chair the AI STR working group with WDTA. Have been leading some of the standard that Professor Yeo has introduced previously, and also participate in this educational program on the Chief AI Officer and also the certified professional for the generative AI. I think all the panelists here is at the front line of the work for the CIO law. So that is really good. We have lots of questions. Maybe I start with just high-level strategy questions. Maybe if you can very quickly list 5 top strategies that you can implement in terms of generative AI in your enterprise. Why not we start with Florin?
Thank you, Ken. Actually, I would like to focus on one piece of the strategy, which is very near and dear to my heart, because I believe it's a predictor and a fundamental requirement to succeed with AI in organizations, and that is people. Because I believe that we as an industry tend to focus so much on technology when we talk about AI. And there's nothing wrong with technology. Foundational models tend to get a lot of the attention. However, I believe strongly that we need to remember that AI needs to be in the service of humanity. And we need to realize that actually most people are quite skeptical still of AI. There is a level of distrust and fear. And I fundamentally believe that when we have the purpose of using AI to empower people to become the best versions of themselves, to thrive, to succeed in their professional and personal lives, to do things they might not have imagined they would be able to do otherwise, we get a level of trust. And when you get trust, you get adoption at scale. And when you get adoption at scale, you get value. So therefore, I really, really would encourage organizations, whether you're for profit or not for profit, to truly put the topic of people and organizational readiness at the top of your agenda for succeeding with AI.
That's great. Yeah, I think people first in the AI, especially in the generative AI area, is important. So thank you for that. Comments? Nick, what is your thought on the strategy?
While we're speaking about the 3-legged stool of any organization, which is people, process, and technology, so thank you for starting with people, Florin. I think I'll speak on process. Okay. I think for a long time now, we've been ever tolerant of processes that have been fundamentally broken. And there's a lot of this is how we've done it for so long, so we should continue doing it this way mentality. So I think that making sure that we are harnessing and leveraging AI for specific use cases where it will solve the problem is really key. We need to start with the process and the problem and not the technology, right? Otherwise, this is just a technology that's looking for a problem to solve, which is what now we don't want that. So we always like to take the approach of examining key processes that are fundamental and critical to the organization and mapping it out programmatically through partner tools of ours, and helping understand exactly where the flaws are in the process and where this new type of technology, generative AI, can come in and assist and scale the human.
Thank you, Nick. Andrea.
Yeah, so, well, the main topic had been already touched, but I think I can add a little bit. So definitely the human element and the process element needs to be combined somehow. And the only way to combine it is to understand what the human is better than a machine, and when the machine, or the AI machine, is better than a human. In my opinion, a good framework or strategy, as you call in the question, to put the human in the right place and the machine in the right place to benefit us is to identify tasks or processes based on is it factual based or is intuition interpretation based? If you make this distinction, yeah. So there are tasks or projects that are factual based. You need to digest or take a lot of information, data, not necessarily number, but data of any sort. In that case, machine that basically have unlimited memory and they do not have emotion, they basically do not have emotion, way better than us. So everything that is factual based, a machine can take charge with a final control somehow when it needs to be the final process by the human. When there is an interpretation based or a forecast of any sort in the future, then a human or intuition based, basically, job, the human should take charge and do not trust the machine instead, because as we know, the future is not directly intelligible by the data. Otherwise, you know, we will always be predictable. This is not reality. But anyway, if you do this distinction, then the machine will have its own will have its own place to help us in a way that it enhances us. Okay. But it cannot be at the detriment of our own intuition, okay? Because that's the only thing we still have to somehow infer or have hints about our future.
Great, yes. So I think we touch on very good point in terms of strategy. Florin talk about the people, Nick talking about process, Andrea talking about we have to verify the machine output. So this is all good. I think the next topic is also a bigger topic. If you feel good, maybe touch upon one or two. It's about ethics. As a CAIO, how do you implement ethics or ethical AI in your organization? Why not I start with Andrea? Go first. You go first.
Okay, sure. Look, as we all know, in August, the first body of law that's been implemented and actually put into force is the EU AI Act in Europe. And I think the framework is good in the sense that, first of all, the first principle is to protect life, human life, and life in general, okay? There are different tiers of what a company should or can do or cannot do based on the risk of certain application to the human life, okay? And basically, if it's high risk, it can be education or healthcare. They have a high input. Whatever the tool or solution you're gonna use, they will have a high input on life. And then if there is a limited risk, that can be customer service or things like that, there will be limited risk. So you have these two tiers, okay? So when you have limited tiers, I think the ethical role of a CAI officer should be to draft documentation, make aware what the system or the data or the summary of the data is involved when it's being trained AI model. By the way, all I'm saying is a derivation of the EU AI Act, okay? For limited risk application. When I'm talking about implementing and not just using high risk in terms of even life risk application, then on top of having documentation available or actually high level the AI application works, a summary of the data, you need to do a little bit further. What does it mean is you should have a process to evaluate and records the process of evaluation of the result or the accuracy or any other metric of the model, okay? When something goes wrong, can happen that things go wrong. AI is no different from any other application, of course, so things can go wrong. You should have a procedure of mitigation of, you know, of the bad accident. What are you gonna do when something goes wrong? You have a procedure and you need to, you know, implement it and have a risk record for this kind of accidents. And then lastly, probably is the most important of all, if it's a high risk AI application, again, healthcare, education, things like that, you should have a cybersecurity measure around the AI solution. That's to further decrease the risk that someone else, not intended, use the application for misbehaving or purposes that were not intended to be used for.
Great. Yeah, I think the evaluation framework is important. Also, somehow the preparedness framework. I had the opportunity to work with OpenAI's GRC leader, Nick Hamilton. He actually talking about the preparedness framework from OpenAI in one of the working group, the AI organization responsibility working group with Cloud Security Alliance. That was also really focused on the matrix, and if something happens, what is the procedure to escalate, right? To decide if you're using the model or not. Nick, what would be your comments?
I think Florin wants to jump in. Go ahead, Florin.
Thank
You were
you.
gesturing.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
One point I would like to make is that I believe, as Andrea was pointing out, that regulation is very important. I do believe, however, that regulation is never going to be able to move as quickly as technology. And therefore, I believe that we need to put the bar higher. And I believe that in terms of ethics, organizations should seek to establish a responsible AI framework, which includes the principles, the processes, the tooling, the training to be able to handle all of this. But I believe, again, we have a responsibility to aim higher. And there is an opportunity to embed organizational values and principles into a responsible and ethical AI usage, which puts the bar higher than regulation. And effectively to have AI incorporate the best version of an organizational culture every single day, programmatically, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a week. And what I've seen is that organizations which take this approach tend to end with more ethical and responsible AI. But this is used not just as a risk mitigator, but actually also as a competitive advantage, because you truly incorporate the best version of your organization and the culture into AI. So I know it's not easy, and I am a big fan of regulation, the right type of regulation, but I think we need to aim higher.
Yeah, we can expand more on the regulation side, but I do agree when you just set your ethical AI higher bar than the regulation itself. Nick, yes.
Yeah, no,
Go
that's
ahead.
a really great point from Florin, and Andrea, thank you for kicking it off. Yeah, I've spent 20 years in cybersecurity. I've worked for companies like Bank of America, AWS, Deloitte. And I've come to the conclusion, having spent time in governance, risk, and compliance for a majority of my career, that complying with regulation is kind of like driving your car while looking in the rearview mirror. Okay, I know it's a little bit flippant to say that, but it's to reinforce what Florin said, right? It's good for us to leverage regulation as a kind of a perhaps a North Star or even a point of calibration for what ethics means outside of the walls of my company. But we or you as a leader need to be very in sync with your business and how your business makes money, and define what ethics means to your organization. So defining that and codifying that in a policy is key. It's point number one, right? Number two is how do you if you can't measure something, you can't manage it. So how do you measure compliance with your ethical standards and policies? That's through programmatic testing that both Andrea and Florin indicated. I'll go back to a great example, a favorite movie of mine, I, Robot. In that movie, Isaac Asimov's three laws of robotics state a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow human being to come into harm. A robot must obey orders given it by human beings except where such order would conflict with the first law. And finally, a robot must protect its own existence as long as the such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. So that's a great example of a set of ethics, right? That was particular to robotics because that's what that movie and those rules are based on. But I think your organization really needs to have its own definition and programmatically embed measurement and compliance against those ethics. Now, you can use the same technology that you're going to be governing to be discriminatory against the ethics policies, right? I think we're talking about agentic frameworks. Every agentic framework should have a discriminatory layer to it, meaning that there are the agents doing the work, but there are agents checking the work. They're discriminating the work, right? And they're measuring it against company policies to ensure compliance. Andrea brought up cybersecurity, my favorite topic, AI red teaming and red teaming models before they go live into production, and doing things like prompt injection, model manipulation, testing is key as well.
Actually, yeah, our next question, maybe I can start with Nick. You already touched upon a little bit. It's about how do you implement the AI security, especially generative AI security
Sure.
in organization. Currently, the safety and the security is a hot topic, but let us just focus on the security aspect.
Sure. I'm a very visual communicator. Is it okay if I share something, or should I just try
Go
to
ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Just a moment. So obviously I'm biased, no pun intended, to my our AI AMF. So hang on one second. So this is the first layer. I'm just going to quickly show the 7 layers, the 7-layer framework. This is the overview. There's the engine, and then the 5 sub layers are innovate, secure, govern, operate, and integrate. And so between secure and operate, there's a sort of a view. We haven't released this view yet, but in terms of implementation, this is in compliance with 42001, the AI risk management framework and the like. So I'll zoom in just a little bit so people can see sort of the individual components. When you're talking about implementing security, it starts on the innovation side, and you'll see some of the competencies of the rules, right? It starts with the strategy, which leads into impact analysis and traditional functions like vendor risk. But then going right into, on the secure side, having a full inventory of where AI or generative AI is used, having a component of enterprise risk management to include AI risk management, and all those learnings and exceptions and et cetera, all that's codified and supported by an AI policy, right? The policy then enforces AI inline security guardrails here, and then AI security testing. So when I say AI security testing, I mean within language model security operations, there are functions where you're performing those red teaming exercises. For those of you who are technical on the call and you know what a CI/CD pipeline is, there should be something similar, and it should follow that same sort of infinity loop from the CI/CD, where we perform testing of the models before we release them into the model farm. Okay, and then protecting the model's integrity is very important as well. Ensuring that communication with the model in and out is really mediated by language model security operations. And then any calls to the models must follow certain pathways, and we believe it should be going through an API gateway. AI security guardrails like discrimination, policy checking, data masking and redaction, and then it hits the model, and the model produces a completion, and it goes back through the same channels. So I'll stop there.
Very nice. This is a nice picture. I think we're including this book, right? Did I
We
wait?
do. Yeah. It's in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
get this book.
There you go.
Okay.
Get the book.
The CAIO handbook. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially
That
also
was
as a risk management framework. Yeah.
yeah. And that's
Thank
a
you,
very
Nick.
technical answer. So I'm hoping Florin and Andrea can bring it up a few levels for me.
I
Yeah,
mean, I
Florin,
would add,
go ahead.
yeah, I would add that in my experience, humans are still the weak link in security. And I do believe there is a lot of training and education that needs to happen in a lot of organizations. And that is something that at least we've been doing internally with the School of AI to literally train tens of thousands of people around safe and useful ways of doing prompting, how to think about responsible usage, and in general to understand the risks and the limitations of generative AI. So I believe that I totally agree with Nick in terms of we need to take securing AI very, very seriously, so we do not replicate the challenges of 20, 30 years ago in the last technology revolution with internet as an example. But I still believe that actually the main challenge and the main risk for securing AI is we as people and the way we interact with AI. The last point I would make is actually we focused again on the risk potential of having to secure AI. I would also argue that AI can be used to make systems more secure. So the same as any technology, it is both a risk and an opportunity. And I have seen, for example, security co-pilots being used extensively and quite successfully to help humans to run security operations in a much more efficient and effective manner, to help people make sense of signals in all the noise which is often triggered by security systems. So yeah, those are the 2 points I would make. Don't forget people, and then let's not think about AI as just a security risk, but also actually as a security enabler.
Great, Florin. Certainly, that's a very good 2 point in terms of the weakest link is human, and also AI can help the AI security, and the security is important for AI. Andrea, maybe you can add a few more points.
Yeah, obviously I agree with what Florin and Nick just said, but I just again, it's the conclusions on me, so I'll bring, I'll wrap it up. So yeah, definitely you need to have all the processes that the techies within the organization need to know the process, if not all, at least some of the processes that need alluded to. And definitely, as Florin said, the human are the weakest link in all the processes. And now, especially because we are not talking about AI in general, but generative AI, which basically is tools with human input. I would say, just to simplify all of this, there are 3 main things that any organization should do. So first of all, make a policy of which data they can, or any employee or staff member is allowed to put in this tool or generative AI solution, right? Which document or which images, whatever it is, they are not allowed to put or interact with this generative AI tool. The second is, I think it's a change of mentality, first of all. So we've been all read about hallucination. Anyway, these AI tools may go wrong. By the way, any tool or any technology go wrong somehow, somewhere. But anyway, we are talking about AI. Yes, of course, they go wrong. So the idea to me is a shift of mentality. So you shouldn't expect the AI, generative AI solution to be 100% secure or secure. So you need to put the security the accuracy of the security not on the solution, but on the processes and the walls around the solution. So you shift from thinking to secure the solution itself to thinking that the solution, the security is on the wall you put on the AI. Yeah. So you shift from the AI to the security around the AI, from the AI to the security around the AI. Okay. You need to do this shift. And the third aspect of it is having an assurance process that not only assure the quality of the output, but can somehow verify if there is some malicious agent interfering, you can catch it within the process of quality assurance. If you do these 3 things, I would say you're pretty good. It's not easy to do all these three. Well, the first one is easy. I mean, you should be able to do a policy of which data you can or cannot put in your AI solution. The other two obviously are way more complex.
Great. So we kind of over time, so maybe we have two more questions to go over. So keep your answer short if possible. At least we can go two more. The next question. Pretend I'm your board of directors. You need to ask me, how can I help you as a CAIO in implement your vision? Maybe I start with Florin first for this question.
Yeah, I mean, depending on where you are in the world, boards have a fiduciary responsibility of loyalty and a duty of care. And AI clearly is fundamentally important to businesses, both in terms of the strategic opportunity to use AI to grow the business, to make the business more successful, but actually also as a risk to be managed. And I'm seeing boards become very active and very interested in the topic of AI. I work extensively with boards, but I also recognize that a lot of boards have a hunger for and a need for education around the power and implication and the risks with AI. So actually having appointed management and leadership who owns the topic, i.e. chief AI officers, is often a key role, a key step in this process. I would say the next set of questions which a board member would typically ask is around where AI is used in the supply chain of an organization, whether it's software supply chain or actual physical goods supply chain. And then critically important to understand if and why and where AI has been used potentially in terms of preparing financial statements, which again is a risk to be managed. What I am delighted to see, though, is that there is AI certification for board directors, which is in the works, the same way that we have security certification for board directors. AI certification is coming available, and I see a lot of board directors being extraordinarily interested in this.
Great, that's a good news. And Nick?
Really great points, Florin, on what's the job of a board member, right? You have to understand the dynamics of a board member. Sometimes board members have their attention directed to numerous companies. They're not just on your board, they're on somebody else's board and there's somebody else's board. So I think that education is probably key. So if I was to be asked by, excuse me, my board of directors, how can I help you, CAIO, properly implement your vision? It comes down to support. I'm not saying blindly trust everything I say. I would say that lean on me to fill in the gaps where you don't understand. I would say make a commitment to educating yourself. I wasn't aware of the certification that Florin mentioned, but I'm excited about that. This history repeats itself. The same thing happened with cybersecurity. I'm actually speaking at the Private Directors Association at a cybersecurity conference hosted by the Private Directors Association, which, just 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. Private Directors Association didn't care about cybersecurity until it became a really big deal and we saw breaches, in the 8-figure size, right? So I would say start early, and I would say to follow the news is really important. Every board member, I'm hoping, has a routine on how they stay up to date in the industry and the fields that they serve in. So I'd say education and staying current with the news.
Great, Nick, thank you. Andrea?
I guess there is also in terms of, I'm conscious of time as well, so I will be very quick. I will just say that somehow the role of AI expert or chief AI officer in a board should be around auditing or drafting or reviewing somehow or assess the audit on the AI procedure or anything related to the AI procedure or policy within the company. it depends how big the organization, the bigger, more overall the role will be, the smaller, more hands-on we will be, but everything will be around the, internal audit or policies and procedures around the AI application and solutions.
Great, Andrea. So I think we have one more question, which is very important. Florin actually touched a little bit about this. I think everyone talk about a little bit when we're talking about ethics. Certainly ethics should be more than the regulation, but the global landscape of the regulation is ever evolving. I think the panelists already mentioned about EU AI Act, which is in act since August 1st in 27 nations in EU. So it's the law of the land in EU, right? So it will be, the majority of the provision will start in 2026, August 2nd. But organization already trying to figure out how to apply, especially if you are a global organization, you need to work in EU, like your application need to be deployed. And also in California, there is a 83 bills in the governor desk about AI. Most famously is the SB 1047. And most probably governor will veto it because lots of forward thinking, so-called the risk, it's hard to predict. So he's trying to say it's more like a near-term risk. So maybe need a more modification of 1047 in order for the governor to sign. So we will see, because California is the biggest state in the United States. We will see what California will be doing. Eventually, it will have a huge impact to US and also globally. But with that backdrop, maybe let me first start with Florin in terms of how, as a CAIO, to given this global dynamics or ever-changing regulation environment, how can you kind of design a program to meet the compliance? Florin, go ahead.
Thank you, Ken. As you point out, the regulatory landscape is quite complex. It varies by geography, and sometimes it can be quite confusing with different bodies imposing similar but not exactly the same regulatory requirements on a specific industry. My guidance is actually simple, and that is assume that you will be regulated regardless of the industry you're in and regardless of where you operate in the world. Because the way we see things evolving is that quite basic scenarios, for example, in HR, are increasingly being regulated, and AI is simply being used in almost all applications, in all processes, and therefore, I think it's quite important that organizations behave and start to think as a regulated organization operating in a regulated industry, even if you historically have not been a company which has been regulated. And this is going to be a surprise to a number of industries and verticals. And you could argue whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. I don't believe we have time to fully elaborate on that. But my number one guidance is think and act as if you are regulated, because you will be.
Thank you, Florin, for this insight. Nick?
Yeah, I like to help people understand that CAIOs, if you stay close with your CISO and your CPO or your CLO or your Chief Privacy Officer, once again, I'm going to repeat myself. History repeats itself, right? The same thing happened in cybersecurity and privacy. So if you stay close to a lot of these AI policies are heavily based on principles, cybersecurity and privacy principles, right? So yes, I second what Florin said, assume you will be regulated, but then also use the AI to help you understand your regulatory encumbrance, right? You have access to the tools, you might as well use them for the betterment of your program, right? AI can be used in a myriad of ways to help you stay up to date with regulation, compare current policy to new regulation. And then, finally, I want people to understand the dynamics of the EU versus the US. The EU likes to make policies that are broad-reaching. I believe Thierry Breton was the former commissioner, the European commissioner. He just stepped down. He was a huge proponent of the EU AI Act, and a lot of startups are throwing parties in the European Union right now because they considered before anything with AI GDPR to be highly prohibitive. And now the EU AI Act is the same thing. But here in the US, it's very distributed. You have California with the CCPA, you have New York with the NYDFS, and then you have a few other states that have their own privacy regulations, but you don't see anything broad-reaching across all 50 states. And I think we'll continue that. I don't know, based on which who gets elected as president, but I think that historically the United States has let the states set their own regulations. So that's the final thing I'll say about the regulatory landscape.
Thank you, Nick. Andrea, you conclude these remarks.
Yeah, okay, of course, very concise in the interest of time as well. I don't have any time to, but in case someone else want to, investigate itself, there is a distinction between vertical regulation and horizontal regulation. Horizontal is across different industries, while vertical you regulate per industries. There are countries that are doing that. I believe some countries like some state within the US are doing something like that. But regardless of that, I believe if you have a different regulation, I would say common sense is a good principle. If you behave well, if the company behave well, roughly speaking, you choose one body of law and you should be roughly applicable to the other. On top of that, remember, there are international certification. One is ISO, full disclosure, as I said before, I'm a member of that. As a committee member that drafted the policy. If you are certified on that, it's valid across the world because it's the same certification that is valid everywhere. And I think in one of the slides of Nick, there was the one that is 42001. They should be applicable if you want to have, certify on your good behavior on usage of AI. Again, it's called ISO 42001, and that is valid across the world. What does it mean in practice? It means that very, very likely, if you have, for example, ISO 42001, of course, there are others, by the way, and not that I'm doing the advertising of them. There are others, but this is I would say, the most famous one, 42001 certified, if your company 42001 certified, very, very likely it will basically be abiding for any kind of regulation, no matter what the jurisdiction is.
Great.
I just want to make one quick point of clarification. It cannot be used in substitution. So if you undergo an examination, your examiner will not accept your ISO certification in lieu of evidence to compliance for that examination. Just
of course, yeah, I agree with that. But the point is, if you already done all that, it should be a marginal work, or at least I hope should be a marginal work to comply with whatever law or legislation has, because the majority of the work you have basically already done.
And
you
that would
should
be
already
true that in your context of horizontal versus vertical, I think that's very true for horizontal regulation, right? You can, a fair assumption. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good discussion. I think, yeah, with ISO, you are at least many
In-
steps ahead. Yeah, I
Just
think
to
this.
clarify, just the
ahead.
last word, but I think Nick agree on that. I don't think we have anything better, unfortunately, today. That's the problem. There is valid across the world, and roughly speaking, we can use. That's unfortunate, but that's the case.
Yeah, I recently reviewed ISO 27090, just in draft version. It seems it's good. Yeah, anyway, I think thank you everyone, Florin, Nick, and Andrea, for taking part of your Saturday off for this wonderful panel. I think you really mastered in terms of the topic, in terms of the breadth and the depth. It's to the point. So thank you so much. With that, back to Patricia.